Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Brandon B. This is Elite Media. This is Elite Live Streams. How you guys doing out there, man? Just wanted to come through and speak on a very important subject, something that I'm, a little bit sad about, a little bit bummed about. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a whiskey drinker, of course. In my past, I was really into, drinking and I love whiskey. Whiskey is one of my favorite pastimes, if you will, right? So now we've got some breaking news that just came down. Uncle Nearest, one of the very few black owned whiskey distilleries, which the concept was based on Uncle Nearest being the original distiller who taught and groomed, right? Jack Daniels as a very young man into understanding how to make whiskey and just the overall understanding of what it takes, right? And so I think, based on the concept, originally people were really, really high on Uncle Nearest and they make great quality, whiskey, like some of the best I've had. And I'm so really unfortunate to hear that, they are now they are now placed under a receivership over millions of unpaid loans that apparently they still owe. And so I was kind of doing some research, searching around, and I came across a really interesting a few content creators who are talking about this, specifically Black content creators, and I really enjoyed kind of their perspective. Just because there was some that were very unbiased, and then some that kind of brought it in the lens of understanding why Black business is or black owned businesses are technically not black owned businesses, right? And I love the fact that the people that I've come across, they bring a very very interesting perspective, and they've been able to kind of open up my mind to at least the understanding, right? The part that I think a lot of people don't think about is the manufacturing aspect of how people make these things that they're selling, where exactly they're made, and etc. Right? Because we're gonna go through the entire story, right? I'm gonna start with the beginning, and then we're kind of work our way as we go, right? So initially, what happened is there are a lot of unpaid fees and things that are owed to distillery. The distillery, as well as the banks, were saying, "Hey, we're not getting what we're supposed to. False promises are being made. Nothing is being followed through." And then, of course, lawsuits ensue, and now we are where we are now. And so I wanted to kind of speak on this because it definitely did speak to me as far as like just the understanding of black owned businesses and what that kind of means to our economy. And I mean the black economy, the black dollar, the black money, right? So I'm going to bring in a very very cool video that I came across, and this one is by I Mix What I Like. All right. And he did a very good job of bringing not only just the overall storylines, but as well, making sure that he was very, very articulate in kind of what he was explaining and just the overall forward of where he thinks at least, Uncle Nearest will be headed. And so let's get into this. Let's talk about it. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you would like. And here we go. Let's go.
I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Do all the things to support the platform, and welcome back. Good to see you. Good to be seen. It's a sad day.
Real sad day.
And to commemorate why
My
Black
boy got
business is
that
alive,
fresh.
in the example,
He
with
got
the
his
example
bottle
of
on
Uncle
deck.
Nearest,
Ain't playing
we
with him.
just heard from Fawn Weaver, the owner, or maybe not. And by the way, those Maryland numbers, I'm at least 1%. At least 1%.
Okay, so he's just basically explaining like that in the beginning of the video, there's a video of Fawn Weaver, who is the CEO of Uncle Nearest, and she's just kind of explaining where their sales are currently, right? And just how, they're definitely been doing well as far as sales, which I would not deny, right? Because the product is already on the shelf. But what we're talking about is the future of the company, right? If there will be more bottles on the shelf, right? Given if you're in debt, if you're owed to people, they will hold up, the process. And so I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. And he's kind of speaking on that, the fact that he's bought a lot of whiskey from them, apparently. So, hey, shout out to him.
Maybe 5. And this is the good. I don't even know if you can get this one everywhere. The single barrel premium
Single barrel
version of Uncle Nearest.
word.
It's good right there. But this is why black business is a lie. And there's at least 3 reasons that this unfortunate example reminds us or explains. 1, it's a lie that black business can help the black community. As we'll see in just a minute, it may help a handful of black business people, executives, but the community will not benefit. Secondly, you still need the white investment, legal sanction of a broader settler colonial capitalist economy, and you still need white patronage. If not white investment, legal sanction, and patronage, the idea of a black business, as it's popularly promoted, fades away.
And that's facts, because in order for any business to be able to operate at any optimal level, right, you have to have a white counterpart as a part of this, because what? They own the distilleries, they own the banks, they own the money that gets invested, right? And so I love this point because it really does speak to the fact that, like, all businesses, whether it's black, white, Asian, none of them are fully black owned or fully Asian owned or fully Latino owned. All of them are living on credit, right? And credit is how they're able to make the money, how they're able to put the money into the business, right? And so, yeah, there is no direct black owned faction of Uncle Nearest, because why? They don't make their liquor themselves. All right. It is made in its own distillery outside. They resource it, put a sticker on it, and then call it Uncle Nearest. All right. That is a part of it. That's the part that, I think kind of gets misconstrued with a lot of I'd say black people in general, is the fact that business is not that easy, right? Where if you have a distillery, how did you come up with the recipe? What is your recipe, right? How many people have put in on this recipe? Who, right? Who are the people who are contributing, right? Who are the cookers, right? Who's making this up? And then he will explain as we get more into this that a lot of where their stuff is made, manufactured, is in an outside source. They have to have it shipped into their own warehouses, then ship it out to whatever distributors that they work with, right? So he continues, right? So let's really listen to what he's saying at this part, because this is a really important part.
Then thirdly, black business is a lie in that it doesn't threaten any of the established order. It doesn't threaten that settler colonial relationship. It doesn't threaten that capitalist economy. It doesn't threaten existing labor relations. All it does at best is create a black bourgeoisie that.
And this is facts. This is something that I talk about a lot, is the fact that we have to start looking at things from a more wider range, right? And when he speaks to that part where it's like it is not making any type of disruption, that's what I mean, is the fact that, okay, sure, yes, Uncle Nearest, great idea, great people who are contributing. We appreciate that, right? But at the same time, it is never going to make even a small dent in a full establishment of how many white folks own distilleries in the alcohol business, right? How many banks, right, are white owned, right? Where's the money coming from, right? Who is funding it? No one's going to talk about this, because at the end of the day, that already ends an argument, right? How can we say this is a black owned business when the money is coming from a white source? Their the way that they make the whiskey is coming from a white source. Everything is sourced. It's not 100% made in-house by black folks for black folks. It's a very, very rare thing that that would happen, right? Because, like I said, it takes a certain level of understanding just to get into the whiskey business, right? So to even go further with that, to be able to make your own, manufacturing your own, having your own flavors and all this other stuff, man, it's deep. It gets really deep. It's very scientific. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, this is just a key component of why I think, this is kind of where we're at right now with Uncle Nearest, because I think given where they were at, right? Really successful, doing really well, they forgot, hey, you're not in control as much as you think you are, because as soon as any moment they choose to switch up or ask that they need something or they want something proven to them, you got to prove it, man, because you're not your own boss. You don't make your own stuff. You're not independent, right? That's the key. Is everyone likes to say that these are black owned independent businesses, and they're not. They're not independently owned at all. This is a collective, right? A collective of a bank that you go to get the loan to fund the company. Then you also go take that money and you go and you source the liquor, right, from other outside factions and distilleries, right? You get said liquor, put your own sticker on it, and then resell it. That's what we talking about, right? And sure, yes, great, great resale marketing and all that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is not made in-house. And that I think is what is coming to bite them in the butt right now.
In a handful, in a microcosmic way, benefits from all this ignobility. Okay, so that's why I'm arguing black business is a lie. Now, if we just look into it a little bit, we have this article here from the New York Times the other day that I think in many ways reveals importantly all of the problems inherent to the claims of black business and black capitalism more broadly. A whiskey maker honoring an enslaved distiller is in a fiscal bind. A federal judge has ordered that Uncle Nearest be placed in receivership after a lender claimed the company's finances are in disarray. So,
all right. So that's off top, right? A federal judge has ordered that Uncle Nearest be placed in receivership after a lender claimed the company's finances are in disarray. So this is a part of business that I love to talk about, because I've worked in business for so long and understanding manufacturing and just the entire process of going from an idea to a physical thing, right? I've worked in the creative space, I've worked in manufacturing, so I understand these things, right? So when he says that after a lender claimed the company's finances are in disarray, that means someone audited them, right? Someone saw, hey, something's not adding up, something's not going right, and one of the lenders was like, hey, we need to audit them and see like what's going on with the finances, because maybe for whatever reason they weren't following through on certain, obligations that they made, orders, whatever it may be, right? They weren't following through, and so someone within that organization, right, was like, hey, we need to audit them and see what's going on over there. They did the audit. They saw a lot of things that they didn't want to see, and then now they went to a judge and said, hey, like we need to figure out what's going on over here, because something ain't right. You know what I mean? The finances are in disarray. I mean, what else can you say? Like, that's kind of just what it is.
Despite the very proud and strong message from Fawn Weaver, the owner that we heard from at the beginning, it looks like, as the judge said in ruling on this, that she's out over her skis, which is wild. And again, and I want to be clear. Let me just be clear from the jump. I'm not blaming her. This isn't anything personal. I again enjoy the drink. I support the black owned business as it were. But the realities are that, as we continue to talk about here, the black entrepreneurial community or fantasy is not something that's going to be beneficial to any of the rest of us. So just quickly, since its founding in 2016, Uncle Nearest, named for the enslaved black distiller who may have helped create Jack Daniels. I'm sure he did, because it even says, I think later.
I mean, of course, they're gonna downplay. Oh well, they're gonna downplay the fact that that Uncle Nearest was not an integral part in the creation of the very iconic Jack Daniels, right? But at the end of the day, we know this. We understand that across history, Black Americans have been integral in creating and innovating all things. right? All things, not just one thing, right? So all things being innovated and created by what? Black folks. Of course. I mean, of course. Who else was he going to learn from? The people who were making it were the slaves. They were there. They were caught up in the entire hype, right? So, of course, if you have someone who's working in a distillery this very early on, I'm talking about very early 1800s, all right? This person was a slave for sure. And so, yeah, he helped him create the entire recipe for Jack Daniels. And then, like I said, they always try to find a way to say, oh, he was may have helped create, may have helped create. We know he did that. Come on, guys.
On in the article that he was helping a young Jack Daniels learn how to, so it's one of those things that we've all seen in the workplace where the older black worker trains the young white worker to take their job and
There
all the
you
credit,
go.
but whatever.
That's it.
Now,
how many times have you seen that, right? The young Caucasian, right? Who's probably, his family may be, part of the business, or, someone who's a owner, whatever the case may be. He comes into the business and what? Gets the fast track, right? Gets the fast track. We want to know what he can do. We want him to learn so that we can go ahead and put him in the position that we've, had you in for over 20, 30 years. You know what I'm saying? And that part I think is quite funny, because this is just kind of where we're at as far as like the culture, right? The culture of being used and abused over and over, man. It's crazy.
During an extended downturn in the spirits industry, it has joined a growing list of distilling startups to hit hard times. On Thursday, a federal judge in Tennessee ordered that the company be placed in receivership following a lawsuit by one of its largest lenders. And here we get to that one of those pillars of why I'm saying it's a lie. The suit filed in July by Farm Credit Mid-America, a cooperative financial services company, accuses Uncle Nearest of breach of contract, saying it defaulted on a series of loans totaling $108 million, including interest. And who is Farm Credit America? Proud member of the Farm Credit system. Farm Credit exists to secure a future for rural communities and agriculture as a leading provider of reliable, consistent credit and financial services.
All right. So, of course, the lender is going to make it clear that from what they've saw, and like I said, I'm assuming they audited them to see what was going on with the finances and figure out exactly what was happening. But from the outset, right, it doesn't look good, right? Because you have a lender who's, clearly given them the capital that they need to work and to figure things out. And so now they're like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, we need to know what's up. And this is why I feel like it's very important to always understand that no one is fully independent. Unless you're like, a very rich person and then you just put, a nice investment into your business. Most people are starting on working capital, right? They have a good idea. Maybe they get a good investment or they get a loan, and they got to pay back the loan as they grow the business. I'm assuming, right? Uncle Nearest was, they're clearly growing, but like, were they paying back their debt? I just dropped a video about living above your means and paying back your debt. So I don't know what's up, but they gotta, yeah, they gotta figure it out, man.
Here's the executive committee and the board of directors. So again, the idea of a black business being some autonomous economic powerhouse that will be good for the black community, that could overturn, centuries of inequality, so on and so forth. This is part of what I'm saying. It is just like everything else we end up talking about, something that is backed by, benefiting, supporting banks, lenders, investors, patrons, etc.
All right. So understand this part. Black folks, we don't own banks. We don't have any, I don't know if we do have any loan systems out there. I'm not sure. But what I do know is the fact that in order for us to be able to grow our businesses and to do business, we must do business with them folks. And clearly, whatever business that, she had going on, or whatever direction she had it going on, it definitely didn't go in the right direction, because now, clearly they're in default and it's not looking very good.
So they accuse Weaver and company of inflating inventory of whiskey. They say that misstated details regarding the loans and the purchase of a $2.25 million house on Martha's Vineyard.
All right. This is where things get tricky here is when stuff starts to become personal, right? When I mean, we won't say her, but we'll say whoever was part of the ownership group is misstating details regarding the purchase of a $2.25 million house on Martha's Vineyard, kept a cash balance far below the 1.5 million required by the loan, and failed to maintain sufficient internal financial controls, right? So that basically means that they're just spending the money, buying homes, all this other stuff. And the lender is like, hey, what is this? Like, after the audit, like I said, someone in that organization saw or heard or, had some sort of insider information that something wasn't going right. And went out of their way to say, hey, what's up? We need to audit you guys because we don't know what's going on with our money. And as soon as they did the audit, of course, you're going to find things like this, right? Which is not a good look, man. And here's my thing is like, as a black business, you already understand that, like, what you're up against, right? So your goal should be, right, to be as squeaky clean, as professional, on top of your business as possible, right? And that was my problem as well with Dr. Umar, right? Dr. Umar, he's about to lose the school, all this stuff because what? Because he didn't use the donations the way that they were supposed to, misappropriating funds, right? Taking the money, keeping it in your pocket instead of investing it in your business, which is the most important thing. The reason why people are supporting you, right? If they just wanted to give you money, they probably wouldn't because they don't know you. But you have a cause, you have something that brings people in, like a young school, right? A school for black children, right? Or a black distillery based on the ideology of a disenfranchised distiller who was forgotten in one of the most famous whiskey companies in the world, right? So, of course, the story alone is going to already pull on black folks' heartstrings, because black folks, we so emotional and we love a good story, right? So, she puts out this story, and then guess what? People support it. Black folks support it, right? Because we are the biggest consuming group in America. Black Americans, right? We have the biggest spending power, right? But at the same time, we also don't do enough research to look into these people and what they're doing, right? And clearly, she on some other type of time if she out here purchasing, mansions, $1 million mansions in Martha's Vineyard. That's insane.
Again, that's sort of to my point. Who's benefiting from all of this? This black-owned business. It's another member of the black bourgeoisie going to Martha's Vineyard. Congratulations. And that they kept a cash balance far below the $1.5 million required by the loan. Again, this is not a lot of money relative to the business community and relative to the inequality that exists. And it's something dependent upon us not only supporting the business and white patrons supporting the business and investing in the business, but of course the health issues of drinking liquor to make, in this case, one woman wealthy enough to buy a home in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, man, this is a part of it is, the other side, right? And that's why I love bringing this video into it, was because the other side is, okay, sure, we want to support the black business, no doubt. But the damage that alcohol has done to our community cannot be understated, right? So if we have these things underlying and we're still supporting you, there should be some sort of explanation, some sort of understanding that we should be given as people who support your business, and supporting a business that isn't necessarily healthy for us to be consuming if we're keeping it 100. Like, we shouldn't be drinking at all, right? But we want to support a black business, and black people love to drink. So, of course, yes. But yeah, not under these circumstances, man.
And apparently default on her loans. Fawn Weaver called the lawsuit inaccurate, but a flat out lie used to smear my good reputation. It looks like you're out over your skis, replied the judge overseeing this. Since Mrs. Weaver, a California real estate developer, relocated to Tennessee to start the company, Uncle Nearest has been hailed as a critical and commercial success. She was inspired in part by a New York Times article that recounted the story of Nearest Green, an enslaved man in Tennessee who, after the Civil War, worked for Jack Daniel as the head distiller of his whiskey company, but only recently was recognized by Jack Daniels for his work.
Now listen, that's the storyline right there. That's the story, right? The story is, hey, we had this black enslaved man, Nearest, right? And he was, integral in the design and understanding and teaching Jack Daniels how to make whiskey, right? And so, with that being said, that story inspired her to go ahead and start the company, right? And she goes out as a real estate developer. She does it, gets it going, but she ain't taking care of the business part. The business is in disarray, like they said.
And again, part of the lie is the narrative of Black life, struggle, and history in this country gets distilled, pun intended, through a business and capitalist lens for the purpose of creating and supporting, at best, a Black bourgeoisie.
That part.
This is part of the lie, that it's something that is good for and about the community. And it becomes not much more than a PR marketing scheme that does work, but is limited. Certainly limited in terms of what is claimed to be the potential of what.
All right. So, in my opinion, this is where the business part has to follow through, right? We love the story. We love the quality of the liquor. We love the ideology. Now you got to keep the business afloat. You got to do what you got to do. You got to be on top of your T, cross your T's, dot your I's, making sure everything looks as professional, as checked out as possible, because at any point they can take it away from you. All right. And I hate the fact that we constantly have to go through this and go through these, back and forth. So, they're just trying to smear my name and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, how can they smear your name when there's clearly a incentive for them to see where the money is? Regardless if you care or not, that's who you're in business with, right? And if you're in business with these people, then of course, yes, they are going to be checking everything, because you already know how them people are. So I can't feel too bad for the sister. I can't, because she knew what she was up against, and she should have been on top of her game.
These kinds of efforts can do for the rest of the community. Here is what for me is part of the headline, and it's something that I even texted to Two Black after the recent discussion we had about his new article, which everyone should watch and read. Make sure you do, and please share all of this. My goodness, the work we're all around here doing needs to be spread around a bit more. But the point being, this is exactly what Two Black and myself and a few others have been trying to point out for a number of years now, that these business relationships, there is no separate Black economy and the separate circulation of a Black dollar that can occur if it's not the investment and support from white credit lending banking institutions or private investors. It's this relationship. Like several new whiskey brands,
That part, you cannot make any moves. You cannot make any moves without them, right? And that's just kind of how this is. Like, you have to be in bed with them in order for you to make those next moves, or you do it completely independent, right? We're starting from zero, literally zero. You are the lender, the bank, the money person, all that. That's the only way that you'll be able to be in that space. Otherwise, yeah, you're in debt just like all the rest of us, man. You got to pay them back because they're going to want their money back. That's just how it goes.
Nearest does not distill most of its own whiskey. Rather, it buys from the Tennessee Distilling Limited, a large contract producer located in Columbia, Tennessee, south of Nashville.
All right. So like I said, these companies are not making their own whiskey. This is a I would say like a resale, right? Because rather it buys it from the Tennessee Distilling Ltd, a large contracted producer located in Columbia, Tennessee, right? So they have to go through that, right? They're not making it themselves. They're not building it themselves, not their own recipes, right? I'm sure, yes, they probably collaborate, right? Because that's a part of this, but they slap a sticker on it, say it's Uncle Nearest, and it goes, right? With no in-home anything. It's just, manufactured somewhere else. They ship it to their warehouse, they put stickers on it, and they ship it out to their, distributors, right? It's kind of crazy.
Message.
So as we pointed out in Two Black's article, here it is to illustrate the point. Say I need shrimp, tomatoes, and avocado for a dish, whether I go to Black-owned grocery store or WASP-owned Walmart. These commodities are not grown in the store's back lots. They are imported. It's more likely they were shipped from India and Mexico than the US, regardless of whether I bought them at a black business or not. Hence, nobody's dollar stays in their community for 28, 19, or 17 days. Instead, a portion of the dollar leaves the neighborhood almost instantly to pay for the entire supply chain that brought the products to the shelf. So
this is facts, man. This goes for liquor stores. This goes for retail stores that you see all the time. Anywhere that sells products and services, most times are being imported. That's just where we're at. That's why the tariffs are affecting so many people. That's why Trump is, trying to, create ways to make people be forced to do business more here in America, just because so many things are outsourced, including Uncle Nearest, right? Including Uncle Nearest, right? This is not a whiskey that is made in-house. They go to a separate distiller, ask them to make it. They are on their timeline, given, I don't know what their timeline is, but given, the people that reach out to them, I would assume they get it when they can. You know what I'm saying? And that's just kind of how it goes when you're not doing it independently. That's just what it is.
This isn't to make fun of Fawn Weaver. This isn't to pile on. This
Facts.
isn't to necessarily even blame her. It's to point out that the mythology and the propaganda and the nonsense narratives around Black business and capitalism as a salvation are themselves myths. Black business is a lie. There is no independent Black, brown, Asian, even in some cases, white business. If we get really down to it in terms.
That's a fact. Part of this is the fact that there is no real faction in between this. Like everybody, like I said, Asian, white, Latino, whoever, everybody is outsourcing businesses. No one is fully independent. No one's moving like that right now because it's a longer process, takes longer, costs more, right? And everyone's trying to get that quick fix. They want to get the quick, a return on that investment, right? So there isn't many independent businesses or independent anything, right? To where they're making their own stuff in-house. It's very rare. It just doesn't happen anymore.
In terms of even what one of the scholars at that economic symposium that I've been talking about for some time now and not really following up sufficiently on talked about, that underneath the surface layer of the very white owned and led corporate financial world, the people that actually run all of the financial services, who run all of the databases and the computers and the technology and the exchange and do all of the filing, are Black and brown people, colonized parts of the colonized world globally. So even from the idea, it even goes back to Lady Lugard talking about the tropical dependence that we.
This is facts, man. It's not just, Uncle Nearest. And I like the fact that he brings that into this. It's not just Uncle Nearest. There are so many companies that are in the same predicament, man. They're not making their own stuff. They're just getting what they can, put it out there, put their, logo on it, put their sticker on it, and then they go about their business. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not a bad thing, of course, like nothing but love, but hey, this is just what it is, man. Independent is very hard. It's very hard to be independent. All right. This is coming from someone who's put out music independently, who's put out content independently, who's made clothing independently. All right. It's not easy. All right. It's very hard. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes trial and error. Right. And if you're not willing to go through that process, yeah, I mean, sure, why do it when you can just buy it, you
We were
know?
encouraged to read so many years ago, where she starts off the book by
Bought, not
talking
built,
about
you
British
know?
Empire is dependent on the black and brown colonies. There is no British Empire without all of these colonized people producing all the raw materials, labor, et cetera, and so forth. So the idea that you're going to replace that with something black and have that mythologically become something that is the salvation of a colonized community is part of the absurdity, and why we need to move away from that in terms of figuring out the analyses, political objectives, and
Yeah.
organizations that will bring that about. Peace. Only if you're willing to fight for it. Like,
All right, man, and that's real. You gotta have a certain type of mentality when you're coming into like owning a business in general. And it's unfortunate because Uncle Nearest, I think we all have very high hopes for them and we want to see them do well, right? But in the same token, right? If you do not own it, if you do not own the whiskey, if you do not have an independent distiller, it's going to be hard. They're going to be on you. And then on top of that, like I said, he mentioned about her buying a mansion on, an island and all the things that she's spending the money on. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't. It's a very bad look. You know what I'm saying? Martha's Vineyard is not a cheap place to live. Okay. And to buy a $2.2 million home there, where, like I said, they got audited and then they found this out, right? They're like, wait, what? This is, where are the funds going? This is not what we expected, right? And so yeah, it's not easy. So now I want to bring up another young lady who, she's also been speaking on this, and she's got really good content already. But I wanted to speak on this specific video because it's a really good video where she's just kind of explaining, the update of what just happened recently, right? Where that ruling came down from the judge about, kind of the receivership. So she speaks on this, and I just wanted to kind of, start here for you guys so you guys can kind of get her perspective as
Case
well.
just granted Farm Credit Mid America's motion, aka a receiver will be placed at the head of the Uncle Nearest company. And I'm not a lawyer, but I read through the judge's order, so let me tell you why he says a receiver is necessary. If you haven't watched my original video on this lawsuit, go watch that first so you have the context. Okay, so the judge gives a few reasons as to why he says that a receiver is necessary. First, he says that during the August 7th hearing that they just had, the judge asked the lawyers for the Uncle Nearest company if the company was solvent, aka, do they have enough money and assets to pay all of their bills? And the lawyers responded by saying the company's solvency is in question and they are experiencing a cash flow problem.
All right. So this is all documented here, and I love the fact that she went straight to the court documents. Uncle Nearest, the lawyers, they're like, what? Well, the judge asked him, like, hey, like, do you guys have any proof of, funds? Like, as far as like what you guys have left, what is there? The lawyers couldn't answer. All right. They didn't have an answer, right? They said that it's not looking good, actually. So it's not good, man.
And so that, according to the judge, is reason number one why a receiver is a good idea for the company. Next, the judge points to the barrel inventory issue. He says, given that Farm Credit Mid America's loan is no longer secure, or maybe it never was because the barrels of whiskey they thought were in inventory actually aren't, is another good reason to install a receiver.
All right. So if that went over some of you guys' head, what she's basically saying is like it is one thing for them to be able to give them money based on how many barrels of whiskey that they have. But what they're saying is those barrels are in question. They don't exist. They don't have it. And so that's the part where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, something's going on. Like we paid you guys for the inventory, you don't have the inventory? Like what's the deal? What's going on here? And so, yeah, I would be concerned too if I was a lender. Like what?
From there, the judge addresses Uncle Nearest's alleged engagement in fraudulent activity. He notes that although Fawn and Keith Weaver say they had no idea that their CFO was lying to Farm Credit about the inventory, the judge says the fact remains that the CFO was acting on behalf of the Uncle Nearest company. And generally speaking, employers are responsible for the actions of their employees if those actions were done on behalf of the company.
Hey, look, so apparently, the CFO was lying. right? And that's just how it goes. You can't pass the buck in these scenarios because you're the head and you will always be responsible for what happens below, right? So, hey, she got to hold that, man. That's crazy, though.
And so, in essence, does this suck? Yes. Does that matter? No. And then finally, the judge highlights that while the Uncle Nearest team argued that Fawn Weaver is the key driver behind the Uncle Nearest brand and that limiting her involvement would hurt the company, the judge says it's not clear to him that appointing a receiver would do any more brand damage than this lawsuit has already done, particularly in getting this company through the financial issues it's currently going through. The judge also says that he would be open to making an order that allows the Weavers to continue marketing and building the brand. And
all right, guys, that's it. That's it, right? That's that's that colonizer mentality, baby. You feel me? We take the company, y'all get on the field and make it work. Y'all make us the money back, right? That's the mentality, right? And it's so covert, right? The way that they word it, the way that they put it in there, man, so covert. But it's just kind of what she has to deal with, unfortunately, because she did not handle her business that she was supposed to. This is a part of this, right? As the business owner and the head of the, you're the face of the business. There's no way that they're not gonna, be on top of you and make it, a little bit hard for you. That's just kind of how this goes. You are a part of, a successful Black business. They will not, and I repeat, they will not allow you to do whatever you want on a very easy whim. Most companies, sure, yeah, they could do all that, but you're not the same. You're not held to the same standards. And so, of course, if they're not going to hold you to the same standards, what will they do? They'll find any way to take that from you. So, hey, man, I just feel like this is a really crazy story, and I'm really, really sad to hear this news. But I really do hope that they figure it out and get their stuff together, because they do have a great business. They have a great idea, great marketing, all that. They just have to get the business right, man. Get the business right. And then everything else will fall, in place, right? So with that being said, I just want to hop on here, quick live streaming today. Want to talk about something real, Uncle Nearest Distillery, we hope and we wish them the best. And I hope that they figure it out, because this is some serious allegations, man, and I hope they get it together. So salute to everybody out there who pulled up. Much love to the chat and everybody who came through showing love. My name is Brandon B. This is Elite Media, and I'm out. Peace.